Hello, welcome everyone. This is XO Joe, aka Joe Hexotic. Thank you for joining me tonight on Monday night. We have a final hours of sacrifice upon us, so hope everybody can relax for a little while, about an hour, and kick back with Bloobum and I as we talk about experience, strength, and hope. And then we're going to get into some Hex, Pulse Chain, sacrifice talk. And then Discourse Syndicate Monday night is after that. So thank you, everybody, for joining us. I'll be right back.
Be sure to hit that subscribe button. Be sure to like, be sure to share, be sure to comment. Say hey. Say hey. Say hey. Say hey. Say hey. Motherfucking jackpot. We still jackpot, bitch.
All right, welcome back, everybody. Again, this is XO Joe. Monday night. This is Experience, Strength, and Hope. We had a crazy couple of weeks with the Pulse Chain sacrifice. I hope everybody's got their sacrifices in. There's about 5 hours left where we have a little bit of window. You can make a donation still through the Sons Foundation. If you got everything set up, I would recommend that. If you didn't already get everything set up, then you can go to pulsechain.com, and there's still about 5 hours left. So have a really exciting show tonight. When I came into Hex, I saw a cast of characters from around the world, right? And a handful of people stuck out to me. There's a gentleman in Australia. His name is Bloobum. Bluey, they call him, right? And as an American, I don't have very much expertise outside my own culture. So getting to know the Aussies and Bloobum in particular has been one of my favorite parts of my Hex journey. The guys over there and Sammy Chica, everybody does a great show, and just really have a good time in the chat over there and streaming with them. And Bloobum is somebody that stuck out to me because he's charismatic. I like what he has to say about Hex, and then it's beyond that. It's about life, right? He brings perspective about the arts, about entertainment, about politics, about science, that I really enjoy hearing him talk. So thank you, everybody, for joining me tonight. Hex Live, thank you for being here, brother. Anon, David Morales, thank you for joining us. T-Bird, what's going on? Hex Vader, my nephew, how's it going? And everybody else, Dan Emmons, thank you for being here. Randy Cox. So without further ado, I'd like to bring on my special guest for the evening. Everybody welcome Bloobum. Bloobum, how's it going, brother?
Excellent. Very, very beautiful, very good, beautiful day here. Sun is shining. And
looks beautiful.
Yeah, it's nice. I'm in somewhere in small town, Australia, a little beachside town that is got a lot of whale watching around here.
Nice. So, doing that everywhere then, huh?
Fortuitous that I'm here for this moment. Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. Before I came into Hex, I didn't think about people on the other side of the world being on opposite sleep schedules, and you know what different cultures are like, and just being in this ecosystem has been great because I've been so educated as far as, you know, it's a global environment. No matter what time I'm going to bed or waking up, I can catch somebody from across the world, and it's amazing, you know, what we're doing as a cohesive group. But I love your show, you know, the show that you guys do all together. It's that and the Friday night hangout, and also Cabana's happy hour, Hex Asians, right? Those 4 shows. I just absolutely love when they come on. So if anybody hasn't seen the Hex Late Show or Bloobum's channel, please follow. Bloobum, before we get into everything, you did something really awesome lately that was really impressive to me. You had an interview with mainstream media, and you did an incredible job. You represented Hex and our community very well. I just wanted to, say thank you for that and give you a shout out for doing a job well done.
Thank you. It wasn't exactly mainstream media. I think he'd be considered pretty fringe, but he's also pretty kind of like a conservative financial kind of guy in the Australian scene. Although he is considered fringe, he's not mainstream by any.
Oh, okay. But I got the very serious feel from it.
Yeah, right. I had a great reaction off that video. A lot of people sent it to no coiners, and like my dad even said he understood Hex after listening to it, which is kind of impressed me. It's so that's really nice. I've spent a time like writing to various YouTube influencers that are outside of the kind of where I think our bubble is, and I've had some success with either getting Richard Hart on or getting them to know about Richard Hart. And in this case, he just kind of like, he wanted to interview me, and so I thought, jump at the chance. Like, how many times does Richard have to go over the same old stuff with all of these people? And I know he loves it and he's good at it. But it's also like at some point, Hex has to grow its own legs, and a whole lot of us have to start getting out there, I think, and spreading the word. Like we don't have to leave it all onto the shoulders of Richard. Like that's the whole Hex ethos, isn't it? It's like, no expectation of work from others. Get out there and do it yourself. Go and create something. Go and make something. And I think that everyone has got their own thing that they can add. And that's the beauty about. Like, it was such a privilege watching. This is a real decentralized organization, the Hex community. This is a real one, and it's just fascinating watching it in real time because it's got no set structure or imposed structure. It's just a whole lot of people getting out there and doing stuff, and some things hit and other things don't hit as much, but it all adds up in the end. And it's been a privilege just to be part of it, like I think a lot of us feel. And it
was inspiring, Bloobum, to see how you're always concise and eloquent, and I enjoy your speaking. I feel like I've seen you mature a lot as well in the space in the short time we've all been together. Your confidence level, your streaming connection, microphone, everything. You've just come a long way, and for you to get up there and hold your own and represent our community the way you did, it was truly inspiring. And just like you said, it's not all up to Richard. It's up to all of us to see what we can do and get the word out there. And you set a great example. Thank you.
Yeah.
So this show is experience, strength, and hope. And I know we have an exciting time with the sacrifice going. So I want to make sure we leave some time for that. We'll go on for about an hour and 45 minutes total so that we can have a little break between our show ending and Discourse Syndicate coming on. So we've got about an hour that I'd love to get to know you better, Bloobum, and hear, where you came from, what it was like growing up a little bit. And then so if you overcame any challenges and you'd like to share that, any obstacles, that brought you into the man you are today, successful in Hex and outside, I'd love to get to know you better. So thank you for joining us. And if you want to take over the floor, it's yours.
Yeah, right. Well, I didn't have any specific stories. I think that I think I've learned the most out of my failures in life. I think that's maybe a good place to start. And also like just to talk about, I wanted to talk about feeling awkward, because I have a theory that you're not learning something new unless you're feeling awkward. If you're feeling secure and confident and safe within something, then you're probably not risking anything. And I think that anytime we do anything new, like you're creating new neural tracks, and so by definition, you're going to feel awkward doing it. And like I think that the things that I learned most out of the failures in my life are the times when I managed to have a depth of empathy with other people. Well, they gave me the insight of a depth of empathy with other people that I'd never had before. Like, well, maybe I'll just talk about some of my failures. That's an interesting place to start. So like I come from a theatre background. I've had a career in theatre, making shows, and I've made 5 solo theatre shows and toured them all around the world. And they're the things that I'm probably most proud of, because of just the immense amount of work that went into them. My first show was actually quite successful for a first show, and I did really well. And I discovered that I could actually have a career, touring the world, earning money doing this. My second show was this massive hit, and I especially did very well in Canada, and I toured the Canadian fringe circuit for a long time. And yeah, my second show was huge, and after that second show, there was a lot of expectations on me that I felt from friends, but also just from myself, that I'd had 2 really good shows, and now I was going to do its massive, like even more successful third kind of show. And that didn't happen at all. It was a failure within my own eyes from the start. I didn't kind of like creatively make it interesting enough for myself. And then I had, because of all this huge expectation, like I went to some cities where I was on the front page of the newspapers in these cities, and then I went and would do the show, and it was just an abject failure. I mean, the nice thing about comedy is you know if it's working or not, and you also know if it's not working, and which allows you to self-correct. But sometimes all the self-correction in the world doesn't get you anywhere. And this show, like I had to tour it for like 6 months, and every single city I would go to, I'd just like, it was just not working at all. I didn't like it. I didn't like what I was doing. And
Bloobum, were you the writer, the producer, the performer, all of them, director, everything?
Not the director. Like for the first show, I brought in some people at certain stages to direct, and then for the second show, I had a director, and then the third show, I started off having a director, but then I had to move countries, and so that kind of fell out. And but everything else I would do. Yeah, I would be the performer. I was the producer. I'd be putting up the posters, handing out flyers, trying to get people to the show.
Awesome.
Press. Like organizing everything, the theaters, the technicians, there's a ton of work involved.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And after putting so much work in for that, and like that third show, and just having constant failure, it really kind of like I've like, it's the opposite side of tragedy, is that you get this amazing experience. Like I also, like years later, I went and became a producer and made some short films. And one of the short films I made was an animated documentary. Like we interviewed real people about some sort of tragedy in their lives, and it was called Good Grief. And it was like, what happens, like what's the other edge of the sword from going through really full-on experiences, and then
awesome.
and then you can, anyone can watch it. They can go to my website, johnocats.com, and it's somewhere on there. And that we interviewed someone who had a friend suicide. We interviewed a Paralympian who had lost his leg. We interviewed these kids whose bunny rabbit died, and we interviewed a guy whose parents had just both died in quick succession. But the thread was that by going through such a full-on experience, an emotionally intense experience, you get this insight, and you get a depth of feeling that is not accessible to you unless you go through those really hard things. And it's worth it, because afterwards you have this empathy with other people. Like people can tell you their story, and you feel it. You know what I mean? It's like, so. Yeah, I think that, so
So it must have been pretty difficult then for 6 months of touring. Like, you already realized it was kind of a tough show that you had on your hands, and then you had to keep performing it, knowing that you weren't going to get the laughs that you hoped.
Yeah, totally. And you try to change it every night to try
That's
to
what I was going to ask. Yeah.
I had shows which were very had a lot of room for improvisation. So I had a very set structure and set kind of characters and things that I do. But then I could always jump off down tangents and then come back. And so as that show like kind of went from worse to worse, I'd keep trying to like come up with improvisations, come up with stuff, and it's probably not as bad as I think it was. My experience of it was pretty brutal.
Yeah, sounds it.
But yeah, but like it's
kind of sharpened you, right?
It's definitely like I learned so much from it, just about being a human being, you know, and yeah.
What's it like as far as your emotion? Are you a vulnerable guy? Are you really empathize with other people in general? Is that why you gravitated towards the arts and towards creating this style of entertainment that kind of takes people away?
I don't know if I would consider myself an empathic person. I am and I'm not. I'm also kind of like a very steady person and a very emotionally kind of like stable person. In fact, that was one criticism of my acting teacher, was that I'd always, if there's any emotional extreme, I'd go back towards the center as a way of humor, as a way of comedy. But what that would do is cut me off those extremities of feelings, and I can see the truth in that. Yeah. So yeah, I'm not. I mean, it's also very hard to compare your consciousness with somebody else's consciousness. Like, what does it mean to be empathetic with someone else? Like, how do you know a depth of feeling? How can you measure a depth of feeling compared to other people? You know, it's like you really do have to experience something of what they have lived to an extent, and that's why failure can be so informative. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I had a lot of kind of abrupt, rough, violent failures, you know, lots of good years, and then kind of one rough event sort of repeat itself. So I was able to, I think from a very young age, empathize with others because I was always getting into it myself. So, you know, I recognize that our community is full of people like me, like yourself, that do have these. I would think it would be, my ego almost wants to say that we have something that other people don't, that we have the ability to empathize. And that's what makes us special. And that's why I smiled so much when you responded to my question, because you have that perspective that I don't think about much, which is why would we even think that we could gauge what somebody else can feel, you know, unless you've been through exactly that. So
you might be right. I think there's definitely a failure of imagination in a lot of people to imagine what it's like for somebody else. I think that's with a lot of the criticism around Richard and Hex, I think that kind of comes into it. Yeah.
What was your experience previous to writing anything, you know, growing up, as far as what got you qualified to go into that field? You know, why did you feel like that was for you? Were you the center of attention when you were younger? Were you a comedian?
At school, I was shy and introverted, and yeah, I would definitely call myself an introvert, actually. Like, I really enjoy being alone, and I enjoy just hanging out with myself. And yeah, like, but then, yeah, well, so what happened? I was like, I mean, I was always never chased money. I realized at a very early stage that chasing money was boring, and that it was like it's a no sum game, because you get there and then that's it. What next?
You need
So
more.
I was always very aware to chase experiences, and so I went after basically experiences, and like how did I get it? I mean, I was actually wanted to be a director. I wanted to work on films, and so I decided to go to theatre school because I wanted to learn how to work with actors. And at the time, I was very interested in Mike Leigh films. I'm not sure if you know him. He's an English director, and the way he devises his films, so he gets his characters in. He gets his actors in character for like 6 months, and then he brings them together to do improvisations, and the films come out that way. And I always thought that was like a really brilliant methodology for coming up. Like the level of acting in his films is just next level. It's like the commitment that his actors show is just incredible. And like there's a very famous Secrets and Lies, a very famous film of his, and like for a couple of those actors in that film, he worked with them for 6 months separately, and then when he brought them together, like one was a black woman and one was a white woman, and the white woman was supposedly the mother of the black woman, and so these actors are meeting for the first time in character, and it's a pretty amazing film, Secrets and Lies. It's, I mean, hilarious, but also brutally kind of emotional and full on. And yeah, so I was really into that, and I found this acting teacher who is kind of from the French school of improvisation, I guess you'd call it, the Jacques Lecoq school of physical theatre and mime, and it's all kind of devised theatre. They do clowning and theatre of the grotesque and mask work and all that kind of stuff. And so I went along to theatre school thinking I was going to learn how to work with actors, and ended up just kind of loving it, and found my extroverted side, found a channel for my extroversion that I probably had in me, but like had never really expressed itself. And then it just went from there. Like I had a lot of success. Like I've been kind of good at lots of things in my life, but never really good at anything. And then when I started going to theatre school, it was like, oh, I might actually be really good at this. And then I was in a comedy duo for a while, and that blew up. And then I had a dream, and it told me to go to New York. So I went and lived in New York. And
what was that like?
I was amazing. Like I was in a small town in Australia, Murwillumbah, and like I had this dream where I was in prison, and I was being taken to see the top dog of the prison, like the prisoner who ran the prison. And I brought him an avocado plant as a present. And he said to me, right, you're about to get out. What do you want to do? And I thought, I want to just say what you want to do. So I said, I want to be an actor. He said, right, you got to go to Broadway. And then I woke up. And then, and so like within months after that, I'd bought a one-way ticket to New York, and I was living there.
That's incredible. Good for you. Wow.
Yeah. I've often taken risks, I guess, in life. Like there's been a few times where I've bought a one-way ticket somewhere and just to see what would happen.
And so you moved to the city, to New York, or the suburbs? You lived right in the city?
Brooklyn.
Wow.
Brooklyn. On the L train. Yeah.
Nice.
Like I found a friend of a friend, and I crashed on their couch for a while, and then I just kept moving around, and then I started running out of money and had to get shit jobs, and then 9/11 happened, and I actually witnessed 9/11 happen, and
wow.
And that was pretty crazy. And then I was doing like because I thought New York would be the center of amazing theater in the world. And then I went there and realized, oh, no, there's a whole lot of shit. There's a whole lot of shit here as well. It's just more shit. And I started working with these people from New York Uni, NYU, like the Experimental Theatre Wing. We were putting on a show, and that's when 9/11 happened. And then soon after that, a friend was opening up a open mic theatre night, and I just did I went along and did 10 minutes there, and then I did another 10 minutes, and 2 weeks later, another 10 minutes, and then I just put them all together and turned it into a half-hour piece. That there was a festival going on in Brooklyn at a theatre, independent theatre, and then I started doing stuff, and then I found the Canadian Fringe circuit, and that's was just heaven. because you can make a show and you could tour it for 3 or 4 months and earn enough money to live for the rest of the year. And so you're making your own stuff. You're your own business person, organizing everything. And the success or failure of what you did really depended on your work, you know what I mean? And it was everything from the quality of the work to, how good a posters you could design and how many flyers you could hand out and which venues you could get at which times and all sorts of, stuff like that. And yeah, I just kind of like, I had my first 2 shows were amazing successes, and that just kept me going. And then I fell in love with this Canadian girl, and I was living over there for a while. And then, yeah, I just kind of kept making stuff.
Bloobum, how much time was in between you coming to New York and then creating your first show?
I had the first half hour after about a year. I was in New York for about 2 years.
Oh, so that was the show. I was thinking you were doing I was thinking you were talking about stand-up, like you were putting together a stand-up routine.
Yeah, in the stand-up world, I was considered theater. In the theater world, I was considered stand-up. I kind of fit in between, which was handy sometimes, but also annoying sometimes. Yeah, like I got to New York. I started trying to get on other people's shows. I got on some other people's shows, realized I should just be making my own stuff, started making my own stuff. And then after the first year, I think I made my first kind of half-hour show. And then I started researching festivals to send it to and found some festivals and then realized you could just tour this stuff and it was a kind of gradual. But after 2 years, I guess in a lot of ways, like that first solo show was my kind of graduation from New York. It was like for a couple of years of came out and once I left New York, I was like, oh, that's it. I'm done with New York. It was a bit like I really loved it, but it was also pretty intense kind of living.
Yeah. I always thought, not always, but over the past decade, I wanted to move there for a little while, about 10 years ago. And after going to spend the weekend there every weekend for, 12 to 16 weeks, I was taking some classes. I just thought it would be something that, I grew up in the country as well. So to have that experience of New York City, there's nothing like it that I've ever been anywhere else. It's overwhelming a little bit for me. And so I thought it would be really cool if we just had something set up that everybody got a chance to live there for a year at one point, because it's a totally different style of living compared to where I am now,
Yeah.
And it's like, if you can make it there, you can make it anywhere. Like you said, not like you said, like everybody says. And you went there and did it, had a dream, went and followed through with it and then made it happen. And in the toughest place to make it happen. That's incredible, Bloobum. I didn't know that about you.
Yeah. It was, it's all it's a lot of fun. Like it's.
Well, can you talk a little bit about what that, like the first 10 minutes was, the first 20 minutes, like what you were building, what that became? Is it? Yeah.
I kind of, I had this New Zealand character who's like my wellspring. And I could just start, how you going? What are you doing? What's going on in your world? And he could relate to people and he could talk to people very easily. And then it was I suppose you could call it clown without the nose. So it was just this wild kind of whacked out, people called it surreal, a bit absurd, very physical, a lot of the stuff. I had a slideshow in it. It was just me running around stage as my big playground, just kind of like getting into mischief basically. And
where did I'm not even sure the right terminology, that you're an acrobat, right? So where does that fit in? Where did you learn that, and how did you incorporate that into any of the live shows?
I mean, I was very physical. I mean, I've always been a dancer. I've been into this thing called contact improvisation dance for I guess over 20, 25 years or something. And I'd always been into lots of different physical stuff, whether it be Feldenkrais or body awareness stuff. And then the acrobatics kind of came later. That was kind of more like in 2010 onwards. And it was just something, I had a girlfriend who was into it, and then she sort of got me into it a little bit, and then and I just loved it. It was like, it's a really beautiful skill to practice. And you know, where you know whether you're getting it right or not. It's often in the creative field, you don't ever really know if you got it right or not. You just have to be happy with what you've done. You know, it's like, when does a piece end? When you finish working on it, you know, and in a way you can continue to work on stuff forever. But with acrobatics, it's either like either you nail it or you don't. And there was something very nice about that kind of like precision with knowing whether you're succeeding or failing, you know, like you could practice stuff and get better at it. Whereas with theatre sort of stuff, there's a bit more nebulous. Like sometimes you think you're getting better, and then other times you think you're getting worse at what you're doing. And it really depends on, you know, the interaction with the audience. Yeah.
Are you active in that community right now? Are you doing any sort of improv or?
No improv. I've been going to some acrobatic jams, which is fun. And I kind of end up being the teacher often. So for me to, I'd really have to be in a more populous city to be around people who I could learn stuff with. But it's always fun working with other people and teaching them stuff. It's like, one thing that's what I really noticed about the awkwardness of people learning something new as well. Like teaching someone acrobatics for the first time, you have to feel awkward. Everyone feels awkward, and people think that you shouldn't feel awkward. That and I see that as a barrier to learning. Like, it's okay to make a fool of yourself, to stuff up. You learn from your mistakes. In fact, when I was performing, the funniest stuff would be the mistakes. Like in my first comedy duo, we had this whole show kind of worked out, but then we would come out as these two New Zealand characters and just to organize everything, because we needed characters you could just improvise in. And every time the show stuffed up, we'd break out into these two characters and just talk about what happened. And that was like that was the funniest stuff than any planned stuff. So like, mistakes are gifts from the gods when you're doing improvisation. Because people recognize that it's a true situation, or that you're really struggling or whatever. And if people can empathize, then they laugh. It's funny.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny. I get nervous to come on stream. In almost anything I create in our community, their standards are so high because everybody is so talented that there's somebody that's outstanding in every aspect of what we can do as human beings. So it's incredible to have this inspiration all around me. I do get a little bit lost sometimes with knowing, you know, when to keep working on something or how much input to get from other people when being creative. You know, it's amazing because I can learn so much, and I am also so uncomfortable sometimes. You know, I feel awkward. I feel like it's because I'm learning, you know, and I didn't really recognize that recently till you said that. It's I'm at a point where I have a lot of inspiration all around me, and I would love to be better at everything, like everybody. And you know, it's hard to, sometimes I get so inside myself that I don't realize all the progression that I've made, you know, recently. So I understand what you mean about the awkwardness and what that feels like, and what, you know, to walk through that and to overcome it is something I come through every time we stream. You know, once we start, everything is cool. I'm relaxed and having fun. But it's like the 20 minutes, half hour beforehand, I get really nervous. You get the butterflies, you know, and it's the level of intellect in our community and creativity and the entertainment value that all the streams bring. It's just amazing to be a part of it, you know. And it's I'm happy that you brought this topic up because it's interesting. You know, it's not something I would have thought about.
I think it's a really good sign that you get nervous. I think you have to worry about when you don't get nervous. often when you've got that little bit of nervous energy, it means obviously because it's important to you, and people can see that, and that's quite endearing. But also it gives you that level of vulnerability, which is very, very watchable. And like the times when I would when I'd be doing shows and I'd stop feeling nervous is when I'd try to make myself nervous, because like just to get that edge, you know what I mean? That kind of like,
yeah, it's
that heightened sense. Like you can really sense it in a theater, especially. You know, this is a different medium on video, but like in a theater, when you're in the room with someone else, like you can tell when something means something to them, and when it's emotionally impactful. And and that's a beautiful thing, you know. It's a very human thing.
It makes me think of a feature, not a bug, right? Like Richard would say.
You don't need to avoid feelings of discomfort and awkwardness. It's about having them and doing it and accepting them, and kind of going with it. I think going through it, and you know, like, what is our goal here? Our goal is it personal development? Is getting the word out? Is it like, it's many different things, I suppose, isn't it?
Right. Yeah.
And so in the end, that's all you're doing. You know, you're either personally developing or you're getting the word out. I mean, they're the main things why we do these things, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I have so many goals. If I want to do charts like whales, I got a long way to go. If I want to command a room like RG, same way. If I want to be as worldly as you, you know, I got a ways to go. But the thing is, I've progressed so much for myself in this past year, you know, and it's because of having this inspiration around me, these men and women to look up to. It's if I keep comparing myself to everybody, you know, I'd always feel a little bit maybe less, not good enough. But if I just think about what I was not too long ago, you know, I can appreciate that growth. And that's what's special about this community, is like every single member that is truly a Hexagon that comes in, they're different from the rest of us. They're a unique character, and their drive and love for Hex in our community is invigorating, you know. And so I get re-energized all the time in all these different avenues, you know. And it's in right now, like, it's graphic design for me. There's graphic design artists in our space that are just incredible, like Gold Key. He's absolutely amazing, you know. And it's I just feel so blessed to be here in this space and see his work, you know, and to be creative. And I just have to just remember, you know, it's like why am I here? I'm here to give everything I can, you know, because I love the space and be creative. So I just try to do what I can and enjoy while I'm doing it, you know. And it's great to have guests like you come on, Bloobum, that, you know, I'd love to do different shows beyond this with you sometime, because the scope of things we could talk about is just so incredible. You know, I really love when you guys go on tangents, you know, and the topic goes off Hex for a little while.
Actually, one guy you missed on it when you were listing off all the great streams that you watch. Like for me, Hex Tangent is like, he's an absolute must see. I find him so entertaining, and I find him much more entertaining just doing solo, not so much when he's talking to other people. I just love his mind is just like hilarious. And
I just started watching him. I wasn't aware of him not too long ago, but I just started watching him with you guys, and then his own show I've seen a couple of times. He is great.
Yeah. There's so many different flavors, aren't there? And it's really been really beautiful seeing the different waves of adoption come on as well. Like there's more and more people, and then you're seeing more and more people. It's just going to keep spreading, hey? And everyone's got their own unique take on everything, you know. So many TA people, hey? I never realized there was so much TA.
Yeah, it didn't seem like it when I first got here, but now there's quite a bit.
Yeah, it seems to be. That's the thing that especially young guys latch onto as soon as they come into the space, is doing all of that TA and everything like that. And yeah,
I think we got Gunther, Jenkins, Wales,
yeah,
Tangent.
I've been watching Pulse Lord as well lately as well. I really like
Really?
him. Yeah, he's
Wow.
great.
Okay.
Yeah,
I knew he
Jenkins
was.
is awesome. Pulse Lord. I mean, I was never really into TA, but I love watching it as a platform. Like, I love watching, because everyone who does the TA gives their own kind of
Yeah.
flavor to it, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so it's a really good base for them to have. Like, that's why Tangents is so good. Like, he does TA, but it's only about 5 minutes of his stream. The rest of the time he's just off on other tangents, and he's just using the TA as like the base, to come back to that. I've got to talk about this, and then he goes off on something else. And a lot of people do kind of something similar, like I think that TA is a really good kind of structure to do streams from.
Yeah. It's it was so foreign to me before I really started listening to Wasabi, look into crypto, or Whales, and I've come a long way with that. I didn't understand anything before, so the charts weren't important to me. But now I do enjoy it, and it's cool when those indicators all line up and it looks like we're gonna explode. Sometimes, most of the time it happens. Every once in a while, it doesn't, but it's pretty cool. You can gather more information, especially if you're watching like the gamut of these guys. If you take a look at all, 6, 7 of these guys that are doing the Hex TA shows, you'll get a great understanding very quickly, I think.
Yeah, I always saw myself as more like the macro person, and saw price movements as being much more macro related. And so I would try to guess what was going to happen in the future based on a macro sense, sort of the trends and stuff like that, rather than the actual data. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And there is something where, okay, so in TA you're looking at past patterns and you're projecting past patterns onto what might happen into the future. And I think that, there's obviously something that's never going to be right, because, the history doesn't repeat, it rhymes. But then it rhymes. And so there are certain patterns that you do see playing out or whatever, but giving a kind of accurate representation for the psychology of the market at one specific moment in time, I think TA is kind of good for, but not necessarily predicting the future.
Yeah. It's funny to see TA where someone's outside the community and they're like, oh, it's a descending wedge triangle right now. Looks like well, it looks a little bearish, and like we're in the middle of the sacrifice phase. Like, they don't even mention why.
Well, exactly. It strips it all back just down to how many people are buying and selling, and what that mood in the market is. But then it misses out on all of this other stuff, like all these people are sacrificing all this hex to get pulse, but they're not selling it. Yeah.
Right. What's your experience been like so far, Bloobum, with the sacrifice? Are you cool with talking about, what it was like going in, your strategy? Are you done sacrificing? You're cool with talking about that stuff?
Yeah, I went in with a pool, and so there's a couple of us have decided together when to go in, and we mainly went in in the first period, and then as we started realizing, this is going to be the best we ever get, then I think maybe the first day or two after that first period as well, we got in. So I think we got in at a good price. Yeah, and I guess my hopium was that there would be some more whale games afterwards.
Yeah, right. Me too.
I was really kind of like, I want to see some weird action going on and massive volatility and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It was more just my entertainment side of me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, sure.
And then after, I think a day or two after the first days were ended, it kind of dawned on me, okay, the whales are all got the same thinking as us. They pumped it at the start to sacrifice at the start. And now it's just going to be, sideways action or a little bit lower. I think now that it's ended though, it's going to enter a really interesting period, because now it's like, you don't want to be holding ETH for the fall.
Right.
That's just a waste of money. Like you want, and probably the best thing to hold is hex, like in terms of your assured value on the other side. Not assured value, but your probability of value on the other side. I know that other people are playing with some of these other ERC20s. I have no idea which ones will be valuable or will have value on the other side. And so, yeah, we've got like a month and a half now where you would imagine the price of hex runs up to just before the fork so that people
absolutely.
can have hex at the fork. And then if people are thinking that, then obviously there are people thinking to take advantage of that. So there might be a dump just before the fork. But then if you dump just before the fork, then you risk holding something shitty at the fork. And maybe there are people who are willing to do that. Or maybe it dumps just after. But even then, it's like how far is it going to dump to until people start scooping up the cheap hex?
Right.
Like especially if it's like, let's say it's like double the price it is on the Pulse Hex chain to what as ETH hex dumps, and like you're getting half price hex then on a chain which works still pretty well.
Right.
Maybe you have to pay a little bit more for end staking and stuff, and you have to be a bit more aware of like the surge pricing. But if you got 2 weeks to end stake, you can normally find a nice low period, and so ETH hex still holds all the gameplay and all the and we're all still holding. We're all still got staked out into the into the future. I think that with me, I probably won't try to time the market. I'll probably end up just holding, just because I'm terrible at trying to time the market.
Yeah, me too.
And like I'm accurate on my kind of medium and long-term predictions. And I found this generally in crypto, but I'm terrible at knowing the short term and where it's going to kind of going. I've started buying a little bit more hex on dips and I guess that's come from watching a lot of the TA and understanding, okay, it's gone up, now it's come back just straight down, it's going sideways for a bit. Okay, now it's probably a good time to buy.
Yeah. So Bloobum, do you think that there's no whale games left to be played in the last 5 hours? Do you think we've seen it all, or do you think there's going to be one last little hurrah one way or the other?
Well, I mean, there's a whole lot of hex that's been sacked just in the last since I woke up. Yeah. Right. So, and I'm not sure if they are OA directly related addresses, or whether they're OA or they're addresses which have shown OA-like behavior. But I started looking at some of them, and I saw like heaps of different people sacrificing from heaps of different addresses. And some of those addresses had all sorts of different stuff in them. They didn't look like OA-like addresses. So I think we might be seeing the whale game right now. Like we're seeing a whole lot of people. I mean, maybe it is all connected to the OA, and it's just the OA positioning themselves with a whole bunch of pulse. But also I think that other whales maybe have been throwing in at the end here as well. And yeah, I don't know. In the whale games, to an extent, they're like fun to watch, but I don't base any of my decision making on what the whales do, because I just look at the overall trend. It's just like, I mean, hex is simple. You just stake it for a long time and like let it accumulate interest and go up in price over time. It's like, it's that simple, you know. You don't. I mean, it's always fun to try to maximize what you can get, but you can also really stuff yourself up like that. And just the kickback and long tactic seems to be working very well. Yeah. So maybe I'll play around with little bits, like but I have no idea. I don't even really like have plans like that. I just kind of like see how it goes. Maybe that's why I'm really bad at timing the market. I just let my human psychology take over,
Right.
and go, oh no, I want to get it now before I, like a little, yeah. But I'm not too worried about it. I've just got the long-term game, medium and long-term game, and having enough liquid hex sitting there in case I want to do something, or in case I need the cash for it. I think is important. I think at the start I had nothing liquid, and over time liquid stuff's come out, and it's really been really important to me to have a nice little liquid bag.
Me too.
Like I really hold off on selling. I haven't sold any of it yet, and I hold off on selling it. But like,
or me neither, I should say.
Just in case, just if I do want that, like, if I need it or if I want it, I think it's important to start spending some of our gains as well. Like, I really like the hex flex, you know what I mean? And in some ways, people are, they're blowing their gains. But in another way, it's like, no, let's take profit and let's enjoy our lives. And let's not always be like, you don't have to live your life into the future all the time. It's really good to enjoy the present and to, you know what I mean? Like, do things that are good for yourself in the present, you know what I mean? Especially, and whether that's doing a course that you really like, or whether it's, some people it's buying a car or a trailer or whatever. But I think it's important to like realize those gains. This is what we're in it for, so that we have, more freedom in our lives to learn and to develop and, to give. And so, you can do that. You know what I mean? You don't have to be a miser. You don't have to be super miserly. I think that, but everyone's going to have a different, like journey with their hex thing. You know what I mean? Like, some people are just locked it away for 10 years and just done. I'm like, there's no way I can do that. I'm not going to be sitting here for the next 10 years waiting for it to come out. Like, bugger that. I'm going to start living my life. You know what I mean? Like, enjoying it. And it's like, it seems to keep going up anyway. So it's like, how rich do you want to be? You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, it's funny. I think we're kind of, as a community, learning at the same time, by happenstance. Sometimes I was always 100% staked until the sacrifice phase was announced. And then I started to acquire some liquid. And because this phase has taken longer than I anticipated, initially I've had that liquid for quite a while. I even staked some out, because I had it so long. So I like that now. I like that peace of mind that having that little bit of liquid gives me. I'm sacrificing that APY for that hex, but if we get in a jam, personally in my family, it's like a savings account is how I'm using that liquid hex, whereas it's different than the CD, right? So it's cool that, we're all kind of learning this together. And now, everybody that was so gung-ho and so staked out, now we have this lesson to hold a little bit of liquid. And like you said, to spend the gains, I can feel like when is the right time, because if I know it's going to go to $1, if I know it's going to go to $5, if I know it's going to go to $10, how do I sell it at a quarter?
Yeah.
But it's easy. I made a plan, right? And Maddie Allen helped me with this. So I'll definitely give Maddie credit. Maddie's big on writing down your plan, for investing and then stick to it. And so I am, and the deviation of the sacrifice phase isn't going to, or the addition isn't going to make me deviate. So, when my stakes come out, I'm going to sell my interest, and I hope that the price is good. But it's the chances of hitting a new all-time high when you go to sell are pretty slim. So as long as I know that I'm, up from where I bought it from, then sell the interest and keep rolling over the principal and take that profit, just like everybody is. I'm looking forward to the end of this month where I have my first stake ending, where I've been in hex for a year and I can take my first initial profit. So looking forward to the end of this month.
Do you know what you're going to spend it on?
Yeah, my family is, we need a place to live. My two daughters and wife are living with my sister-in-law right now. So I'm up in a different state selling our house here. I'm going to move down there and just get a place for everybody to, call our own. And, and that's really it, that's really it. So looking forward to it.
That's a start.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful.
And so the sacrifice phase didn't go like I thought it would either. I was looking for some fantastic whale games. I think that there's still opportunity, and I think that Richard's very intelligent. Obviously, it goes without saying, but I think maybe the card he played today is he didn't have to let everybody know that this was happening, right? He could have done it if it was in fact the OA, right? And Richard is not the OA, so if the OA, just to get my terminology correct, if the OA was going to go into the sacrifice phase, they didn't have to do it and give everyone 12 to 16 hours notice to react. They could have done it solely at the end. They chose not to, right? So now the ball is in the number 1, the number 2, number 3, number 4, those sharks, besides the OA. They were anticipating getting quite a large portion of pulse. Now those numbers are greatly reduced. So now they were thinking of
in another way, it's the same proportion.
Same proportion. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But your control.
OA does the same as they did with Hex, then everyone's still got the same proportion compared to everyone else.
You and I know that it's relative, so I know what you're saying. But as a whale, you don't actually have your controlling portion of the network like you used to anymore. So before what happened today happened, you had a controlling interest in the network. You planned on doing certain things, and now those things are not necessarily going to be as easy as maybe you once planned.
Like what would that be planning?
Validating, run validators.
Yeah, but all those big boys up in those top addresses, they're going to be they're going to be fine for that.
Move the price, when you want, malevolently, benevolently.
Yeah, that I'm not so convinced about. Like, it's not like, how do people? Because they've got other whales, they could be stuffing themselves. I don't think it's so easy to move markets. Like, obviously it is. You just buy a whole lot, but then what if it just immediately gets dumped down and then you fuck yourself?
Right.
So
yeah, there's some sophisticated games. So I'm just trying to think why would the OA signal to do this now? Why would it give time to react?
I guess the thing the one thing that confused me was that he has the Genesis address, and I would just be like, well, why don't you just take whatever you feel you need to take in the Genesis address? Why do you need to sacrifice Hex for the pulse? Like, you could just move the Genesis address to 5% if you wanted to, or 10% or whatever. It's only 1% at the moment.
This allowed the whales to play the game, and then the OAs to still secure the spot. So if the OA had said to everybody, this is what's going to happen, the DAO or whatever you want to call it, the founders are going to get 25%. Would the whales buy in? I don't know. But the whales did buy in. The whales played their whole game for the whole 18 days. And then, the OA came in and established its position. So it let everybody play a fair game, get their multipliers, compete with one another, work together, not work together. That set is fixed. And now I agree with you. When the OA comes in, it doesn't matter if they bought one pulse or 99.9% of it. As long as they hold it, it's irrelevant, because we all still share the same proportions. But my point is that if I'm one of those whales spending tens of millions of dollars, I probably have a plan that's beyond just owning pulse, right? There's probably something else I'd like to do in life, whatever that may be, and now I have less. So if I had dry powder on the side and I was a whale, one of the top slots, I might want to consider, what some of us thought might happen in this sacrifice phase, where we see a large market buy, the price go up, and then protect your price the same way that whoever dumped the price on day 5 and held it down to 12 cents with the sell wall, the same way they did that, they could do it in reverse if you're a large enough whale and you can scope out the buy pressure. So I'm just thinking that the OA is brilliant and put the ball in somebody else's court now. We've come in, the OA is here, we have the majority. now you guys have some time to react still. Is the piece of your pie big enough? I know there's dry powder on the sidelines. You guys happy with just that little chunk now that you still have left? Or do you want to get into the scale that you thought you had yesterday? Because you can do somewhere in the middle today. So if you're a big dick swinging, whale, and you run the whole thing, kind of seems like a challenge to me right now.
Yeah, I was just thinking about if you wanted to be a validator, and I guess to be a validator, you're probably going to need like 2 or 3% of the pulse supply. If there's 33 validators, so 3 times 33 is like 100. So 3% would be the top of what you would need. Yeah.
You theoretically you just need a lot less, Bloobum. You just need to be in the top 33. So you could have theoretically less than 1%.
And you just need to get other people to delegate to you as well. So that's why I'm saying maybe 1 or 2% of a pulse supply would be enough to be a validator. But it's like we just don't know this. See, with markets, there's so many people and there's so many motivations and so much information and so much contradictory motivations. Like we're assuming all the whales are really smart, and like from speaking to Overwatch, like some of his friends and stuff, just loads of them made really basic mistakes as well. You know what I mean?
In this process, the sacrifice phase, or previous to this?
I mean, I remember speaking to Overwatch months ago, and he was saying, like, I was asking him, because he knows people who just buy and don't stake and hold, and that exhibit those same functions as the OA-like addresses. And like he was saying that they sent money to the wrong places, the wrong addresses, and they did this and they did that. And I think that we make assumptions about people, and I think one of the assumptions we make is probably that all the whales are very smart to be in the position that they are in, because you have to be smart to be so rich. But rich people are dumb as well.
Yeah, right place, right time too. A lot,
Well, like that's for me. Some of them got lucky. Some of them were smart. Some of them it's a combination of luck and smart. And that's the same with all of us to an extent.
Yeah.
Some of them took action. Some of them didn't take action, and it really depends what their worldview is and at that time in their life as to what they're doing as well. Like what if one of them just gets drunk and does something, and then everyone thinks, oh, that was a brilliant move. You know what I mean? But right. Did just something out of randomness or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, so it's pretty much impossible to read the minds of a market, because there's too many human brains thinking too many contradictory thoughts. And that's where a market is also beautiful, though, because it's where the rubber hits the road.
Right.
This is the buys, this is the sells. This is how many people are buying, this is how many people are selling, and this is the price because of it. And it's just, so it cuts out all of that what could be kind of crap, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I'm looking for dramatic effect. I want to see a movie play out here. I want
that's the thing
grand
as well.
Finale.
Yeah, and as humans, like, Bitcoin crashes. Oh, Elon tweeted something. That must be it. That's the reason it crashed. It's like, no, right. It crashed because more people were selling than they were buying. That's why it crashed. But everyone likes to post rationalize and look for whatever, like recency bias or whatever like that. You know what I mean? And we're good at making up stories, humans.
Yeah. Well, I think life's about storytelling, right? Like the best storytellers are the best leaders. And if you're going to make a wave and impact in this space, you want to be known for the guy that drove the price down and held it there? Or do you want to be known for the guy that drove the price up and did what he could to hold it there? So I've seen some behavior that was surprising to me, but in the scope of this whole game, the sacrifice phase, my hat's off to the level of patience and basically executing a plan that they've decided, and then not really deviating very much at all from that plan. Those largest accounts are very complacent to be where they are. So I thought there was going to be a full-blown race between like spots 2 through 9, the last 3 days. I thought we were going to see fireworks. I'm surprised, so I have a feeling that Richard's surprised. And how do you get everybody to get that last little bit in? I'm not going to be throwing in the little bit of liquid I have tonight if the price keeps dumping, right? But I might throw it in if it goes up. And then I know people might sell too, right? So, the sky's the limit and what the possibilities are. But there is a window right now where the sell wall has been removed, at least last time I looked. It looks like the whales have, free reign to play a little game here. And if anybody has some liquid left, like I do, I did exactly what my plan was throughout this whole process. I also got in on a pool as well. For me personally, though, it was DCA in and heavy on the first 5 days, and then saving a little bit for the end here. So if the opportunity presents itself, I welcome it. I think the community does. If it doesn't, I understand. This is it's a serious game where a lot of money is at stake, and if you're winning, why jeopardize your position? Unless you're worried about number 2 or number 3 taking it from you.
Yeah, I think there is nothing wrong with like holding off on that hex you want to sacrifice and just either staking it or just getting double at the fork.
Yeah,
that's like such a good deal. And like at first I thought that hex would be the apex predator of value, and that over the long run it would do better than Pulse. But you know what? Having seen that the massive growth in the chat room, and also it seems that people do grasp or comprehend what a fork is and the value proposition of that much more quickly than they do hex. I think hex is people are still confused about it, I guess. They don't understand how there are reasons it keeps going up in value. But even when I remember thinking when Ethereum first came out, I thought it's not going to be this stuff. It's not going to be Ethereum, but it's going to be stuff on Ethereum which gets all the value. And I was wrong about that in the short and midterm. Like Ethereum got huge amounts of value. But in the long term, I think I might be right. Like hex is where the value is going to accrue in the long term, I think. And that's on Ethereum and on Pulse. Like Pulse is just the rails. But then there's this whole speculative value, which is so hard to predict. And I think that at the moment, obviously Pulse has this massive speculative value come into it. It'd be interesting to see how it all plays out, especially with 0% inflation and really cheap fees and burning 25%. Like there's not many other coins which are deflationary like that. So yeah, who knows what's going to happen, hey? But I think just holding long term is probably like with all of this crypto stuff is the way to get value out of it.
Bloobum, I got a question for you. Maybe regarding the fees, something that comes up in the Pulse Chain chat on Telegram a lot, the 25% that's being burned, that seems like a tremendous amount. And then the qualifier, the reason it's not a tremendous amount is it's just 25% of the fee, right? So my question is, when we do a transaction, is there going to be gas and then a fee?
Of course, yeah.
Okay. And so the fee, separate from the gas, is what the 25% burn comes from.
No, the gas is the fee.
The gas is the fee.
Yeah.
So 25% of all gas will be burned?
Yes, that's how I understand it.
Okay. And so that is a tremendous amount at first. And then the curve, I guess, would be, I don't know the way to describe it mathematically.
Because you have so many Pulse, like how many are we going to have now? Probably have like over 10 trillion Pulse. More, probably 11 trillion or... No, there was 13. Wasn't there 13 trillion at one guess? And so now with all of this OA stuff coming in, maybe it's even up to 15 trillion or something like that. So like, and if like if gas is like fractions of a pulse, then it's going to be you're just burning really, really cheap fees. Or you're only burning 25% of really cheap fees. So I think that it'll take a while for Pulse to fill up as a blockchain and for it to become more competitive and for the price of Pulse to be higher to the point where it's expensive to do. I think it's going to take probably a long, long time. But it really depends on the network usage. It really depends on how many people come over and start using the network and how much they start using the network. And that network effect.
I get a little bit lost with it, just because 25% sounds like a lot, but then you can take 25% of something forever and never go to zero, right? So it's really a moot point. I guess I'm just trying to talk this out with you, because I don't know. And it seems like there's just potential for that. So I just wanted to see what you thought.
Yeah, I mean, let's say in 10 years' time, and the price of Pulse is huge, and it's starting to become expensive to do transactions. Well, at that point, all of us are going to be so filthy rich, it doesn't really matter. And for the new people coming in, I guess that's when, you have to start looking at maybe having a new chain, another fork, a better chain or something like that. But they're all such sort of like down the road. And already Richard has been talking about other ways of scaling Pulse that he has in mind that he's not sharing at the moment. So I don't think that they're things that we really need to concern ourselves with at the moment. We can just like look at it and notice how it plays out. And I mean, I will soon get an idea of how much Pulse is being burnt. Like in the first month, we'll probably have statistics like this many Pulse were burnt, but this is the supply. And so you'll be able to judge whether it's a lot,
right,
or not.
Yeah, and I know it's exactly what you said too. It's important for us to hold on to the Pulse, so because no matter how expensive it gets, it's going to be like Ethereum. It's always going to be a subset of what it is. So if you have to buy the gas,
than Ethereum, because they can keep inflating in Ethereum, but with Pulse, what's going to be distributed on this fork will be the most Pulse there ever is. So
right.
it just diminishes over time as people use the network after that.
And it seems like you could take 25% of something forever, as long as you were increasing the price 25%. You could take away something 25%, and all things would be equal, if I'm saying that properly. It's just because the fees.
No, it doesn't become equal. You're burning 25%, so you're lowering the supply. So over time, there's less and less supply.
And the price will go up to reflect that. So
you would imagine.
Yeah, right.
It will be an upwards price pressure.
Yes.
Lower supply, equal demand, higher demand, the price goes up.
I think they would find a point of equilibrium, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Well, they will always find a point of equilibrium. That's what the price will be.
Right. Yeah. I guess so, right? Simply put.
Yeah.
Cool.
But that's interesting. Actually, this reminds me of something completely unrelated. But like in this dance thing that I do, it's called contact improvisation dance. And one of the things you explore is the first partner that you have with when you're dancing, even if you're dancing by yourself, is you have the floor as the partner. And one exercise we do is we just stand up straight, and you just notice the small dance. So you notice all of the times that your body starts moving over this way and then correcting, and then moving over this way and correcting. And what you realize is that there is no such thing as a point of equilibrium. Is that being off balance is actually a process of correcting all the time. So being off balance is always being in balance.
It's not a dial, it's a switch. You're always, as soon as you get to that point, you got to do the opposite.
Yeah, and that's with any skill as well. You know what I mean? Like as a child, a child gets food and they'd want to move it into their mouth. They move some of it this way, they move some of it that way, right?
Yeah.
And then over time, they get better. They realize I don't have to move it as much this way. I don't have to move it as much that way. I can drop those small motivations until I get more precise. And then before you know it, like with standing, we think that it's all very easy and you just do it quite naturally. But in fact, there's a lot of complexity in just standing up, because you're constantly like adjusting. Your balance is going off, and you're coming back into balance. So you're never like at a point of pure equilibrium. It's always corrections. And you can say that about life, you know what I mean? About anything you do in life, any skill you have. You're never going to do it exactly. You're going to do it a little bit off, and then you can correct. But to somebody who sees somebody who's trained for years and years and years, like you watch an acrobat do something really amazing, and they make it look easy.
Right.
And the reason they make it look easy is because all of those adjustments that they're making have become so small that they're imperceptible to you as an outside viewer. But in fact, they're making all sorts of adjustments all the time, no matter what they do, even if it's just standing still.
Yeah. Before when we left the topic, I wanted to bring up the Cirque du Soleil. It's one of my favorite entertainment experiences I've ever taken part in. I was curious if you have seen the Cirque du Soleil, but not a traveling show. Have you been anywhere where there's a building?
I've seen them once in Melbourne, and I've had friends who've worked for Cirque as well, and I've got one friend who has some terrible things to say about them. He was an acrobat and hurt his neck, and they were terrible to him. He ended up having to sue them and stuff like that.
Wow.
So there's a bit of background, not nice stuff happening with Cirque du Soleil, but I've had other friends who've like been in their shows and you know, I've had great time as well.
Yeah.
So yeah. But yeah, it's okay. Those big spectacle shows can be fun. Hey, what did you want to ask about it?
No, I just wanted to see what you thought of it. Cause I love, sporting events, concerts, plays, anything live. I just really enjoy it. And that's probably the La Nuba, I think it's called, in Orlando, is one of my favorite live events that I've ever been to. And it's the same show every time you go. And I've been 3 or 4 times, and every time it's a little bit different. I enjoy it. And it just seems like, to me, like, I have a very limited scope of what the whole world is like regarding this space. But to me, like, Cirque du Soleil is like the cream of the crop as far as if you were going to be in live entertainment, like even for me, as far as music or anything.
Acrobatics, with acrobatics, the cream of the crop are the Chinese.
Okay.
And possibly the Russians, but the Chinese are just unbelievable in terms of skill. And like when you order a Chinese circus, you get like a Chinese menu of tricks, and you fill out which tricks you want them to bring over.
Oh wow!
And it's, I mean, they have, they get their kids. It's genetically, like, they get their kids early, and it's the children of acrobats, and like, and they pick the cream of the cream and just like develop them. So the skill level is just, I would say, the Chinese acrobats, just purely based on skills, like that they have it over Cirque du Soleil for sure. And any of that, so, like, Cirque du Soleil is like got some really skillful people, obviously, and they get a lot of those people, like the Chinese or the Russians and whatever. But it's more of an artistic spectacle than pure acrobatics.
Is it more of like the McDonald's of something, where it's like they're just really good at doing it over and over again efficiently, and it really doesn't matter who the players are, because tomorrow we can get a whole new cast?
For the Chinese acrobats?
Well, no, for Cirque, I guess for Cirque du Soleil is what I'm asking. If
they steal people's stuff. Like, if you go and work for them, any improvisations that you do or like stuff that you come up, they own it. So I've got friends who have, who are like, clowns and stuff, and they give their work away to them. You know what I mean?
Wow.
That's just the deal.
Yeah.
And yeah, they'll bring someone else in like that. And this other guy, this trapeze artist who hurt himself while working with Cirque, and then I'm not exactly sure why, but he didn't get health insurance through them. They wouldn't pay for his injury, and yeah, he was just replaced.
What's the pay in a field like that, Bloobum? Do you have any idea? Are those people that are in those types of shows, if you're performing in Cirque du Soleil, are you living a very comfortable life, or is it still a struggling artist? Any idea?
It really depends on your role in
Okay.
it, you know, and I guess how much they want you, or how much you want them, and how much you're willing to, work for them. But generally speaking, it's not something you're going to be able to retire on. It's like good in the arts is pretty low.
Yeah.
And
so is there things outside of America then, like you said, in Russia or China, excuse me, or Australia, where they would have a faction like Cirque du Soleil, but it's just more
Australia has their own circuses. We have Circus Oz is the most famous one and been around for the longest amount of time, and they're really government funded and stuff like that. And then there are other smaller acrobatic circuses around Australia. A lot of their work has not, would be cut off now. They wouldn't be able to do it.
Oh yeah.
I'm not sure how they're surviving. Probably just on government handouts at the moment. A lot of them, I suppose. Like you can't tour. There's lots of there's a whole circuit of street theater around the world. Well, it used to be have you ever seen? I forget the names. They're on these big long poles, and you strap yourself into the big long pole, and they do they go into a city and they just erect themselves in some square or something, and they do this sort of choreographed thing. And I had a lot of friends do that. And you this aerial kind of flying on this big kind of stick, and and you can earn okay money. It's not it's enough to live. It's and it can be really fun going on tour with a whole lot of people.
Yeah.
And until it becomes boring, the fourth or fifth time or whatever.
Yeah.
And there's these guys that just erected these big bells in these cities, and they just did this acrobatic thing where they just ring the bells. The Angry Men, 5 Angry Men or something. Yeah, there's lots of little touring kind of things like that going around. And I think in Europe they have a lot more street festivals, and you get paid to go out and do your thing in a city or whatever. But it's that whole kind of, you have to have agents and apply for stuff, and you have showcases and blah blah blah. It's a whole kind of thing. I don't know
what would you like to do in the next 5 years then, with this, your background being in the arts, and then hopefully doing very well in Hex, and you having a lot of time. But do you have any plans as far as how to unite everything? Are you gonna Yeah,
I'm just for me, my plans keep unfolding in front of me. I don't have to plan. It's
right.
Just things just start. Opportunities seem to start unfolding out in front of me, and I'll just basically go and take them. And at the moment, a few things are becoming unfolding, but I don't want to talk about it too much, because there's a certain stage when an idea is growing, or it's just embryonic stage, where you don't want to let it be affected by
for sure
too much, and just let it grow naturally. And there will come a point where it's time to make it public. But ever since I've been in Hex, something has just come up, and then I've just kind of followed what's been coming up. And I really I bought myself a car. I suppose that was my little I'm just my lifestyle is I've upped my lifestyle a little bit now, so I'm a bit more comfortable. But in terms of what artistic things happening in the future, there's stuff looks like it might start growing. Yeah.
Nice. Cool.
And I'll just see what happens. You know what I mean? I'd rather not have expectations on myself, or give expectations out into the world. It's better to, it's like that thing of, no promises. It's better to come up with something already finished and then promote it, rather than give promises the whole way, and then you're kind of putting a lot of pressure on yourself, and then things happen which you didn't expect. And
I think there's that level.
It's also just,
go ahead.
Well, it's just more fun being in the present as well and watching it all unfold and watching how things kind of like emerge and change. I find that more exciting than having some sort of idea about the future and trying to go towards that idea.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. I'm just curious as to what you are going to do, because I know that there's just I have this feeling with a lot of people that I asked to be guests on my show. I just feel very comfortable with you. Before I even met you, I feel like I knew you, and it's just really cool to see somebody like yourself that's so creative. That now I'm going to get to see what you do. And I'm just glad to see that there's something potentially, even if it's nothing down the road, it's a possibility. So that's kind of what I was hoping for. Just in case you did have something that you were working on and you did want to share, I wanted to make sure that we had an opportunity to discuss that as well.
Yeah, cool.
But I know that there's so much opportunity right now. I was, trying to think, how can I be productive in the pulse chain space myself, and there's so many different partnerships being made and businesses starting and ideas taking off. So it's really cool to take that approach that you just said and kind of just go with the flow, not necessarily plan so much, and just kind of see where everything takes us, because it's been a great ride so far here, because of that.
Absolutely. Yeah. No,
So,
I mean, it's been the best ticket to the best ride in town.
Right.
So far. And it's just going to be as well. Like I think Hex could seriously impact the world in ways that people are underestimating at the moment.
Like what, Bloobum? Do you have anything in mind in particular? Because I agree. Just curious to what made you say that.
Well, this is just it's a savings technology, which is like I can't see how it doesn't sop up all the money in the world. It's just too good a value proposition, and it's too good a game theory. And as more and more people get rich, other people, they'll tell other people, and then they'll get rich. And I can really see it just kind of like taking over the world, and it gives people hope for the future, because it allows them to kind of have those plans, I suppose, and to pour money into things that they want to pour money into, and so just extrapolating how well it's done so far and what will happen if it does start to go mainstream. Like, I have no idea how long that will take, but I can see it like having a huge effect in the world. Like, and I don't even know exactly how. I think it'll very much be a process. But like, once you found Hex, what else would you put your money into? Like,
Pulse. That's it. Till
Yeah.
it was Pulse, nothing.
Yeah.
I would try. I would try to be responsible and get a few other things. I'd have them for a week, a few days, and then I'd be, what am I doing? Not holding Hex. Doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I'm just really not interested in other cryptos so much at all. Like, nothing is really, I see, has been anywhere near the excitement or the potential that Hex has.
Right. What about for you personally, Bloobum? Did Hex improve your life mentally, spiritually, and physically? Did you go through that like macroscopic change because of Hex, like a lot of us did, or were you maybe not necessarily at such a crossroads when you found Hex?
Yeah, I was. I mean, it's changed my life in that. Well, it's often I don't have to worry about money. I wasn't so worried about money beforehand either, but it wasn't because I had a lot of money. It was because I just didn't give. I was just happy I was fine with being poor.
Yeah.
But now that it's like, yeah, it's if anything, actually, it's kind of like, because there is all these possibilities of things that I could do with the money, I feel a certain amount of anxiety with that. Like, okay, you can do anything. Like, freedom is scary as well. Like, what do you want to do with it then? Like, it really brings it back to what's important for you and what your values are, and how good are you at living your values, you know, and showing. Yeah, like there's definitely a level of, like, we have we have the responsibility now. Like, we're able to respond to a lot of these situations in the world. And so, and as we get more and more economic energy, we will be able to have like this response ability. And so how do you affect that? You know, how do you use that? And I think, yeah, like, so there's that little bit of anxiety, but but then again, I'm also just like, oh, that's all in the future. That's all my dreams and fantasies of the future.
Yeah.
Just come back to the present moment. What's happening right now? What do I need right now? Where am I right now? What am I experiencing right now? And that's what I always try to like come back to whenever I start extrapolating out too much about what the future will be like and how I can navigate that future. It's like, in a way, like, that stuff is there and it's important, but it's also really not important. What's like, you can always just bring it back to the, you know, what am I presently experiencing right now? And that's always where like experience will be. Experience is never in the future. It's always like the only thing we can experience is consciousness. You know, like anything else is just what we're making up. It's our imagination.
So do we have free will or not, Bloobum?
Well, having free will implies that you have some sort of set personality, which is acting this free will. And I think that any definition of self is just another part of that imagination, and it's a kind of a boundary that we're putting ourselves into.
So no, we just think we do. The free will is inside the box of no free will.
I'm kind of like, I think it's the wrong. I think it's the question is like.
I know there's no answer. I just want to hear. I want to hear you talk. You know.
Yeah, I think it's unnecessary to even decide whether we have free will or not.
Okay.
Like, it's depth of experience happens through just being in the experience, and
so it's a moot point. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's like. And it's like with time, like we all think of time going linearly, like past, present, future. But the past and the present are really just our imagination of what the past or the present are. We only can ever really experience the future. But what you can do is, rather than experiencing time in that kind of horizontal fashion, you can experience time, you can experience more of a depth of time. And
okay.
so as you kind of like, just by remembering, just by taking time to go, oh, I'm experiencing this, is enough to like bring you into that experience, and that's all we really have. So that by becoming aware of that present moment, time becomes a bit slower, or it becomes not even slower, it becomes richer. Because there's more things. You can always be aware of more and more things, can't you? You can always have different awarenesses and different layers of awareness. And so it's much more interesting for me to live in that than to live in my own fears and desires.
Yeah, it's when I have a lot of anxiety, there's mindfulness, right? I'm sure you've heard of that. There's mindfulness tricks that you can do to keep yourself present. And as someone that had a brain injury, right, and I couldn't regulate my emotions properly, it would be beneficial for me to learn that. You know, I didn't realize that, and losing my train of thought, Blue. I'm sorry.
Cool. Yeah. Yeah. Time.
Yeah, so it's as someone who had thank you, someone who had a brain injury, I would get tremendous bouts of anxiety, and I didn't know how to make that subside. And so going to talk to other people, we would talk about things just like placing, like it was funny that you talked about your balance while you're standing, because there's so much going on just for you to keep that balance, and little things like that, like feeling your feet on the floor, your hands on the chair, you know, talk about a smell, a taste, you know, visualize these things. And it's like kind of funny because to me, I think I knew it all before I went into those places. And it was just amazing that like learning these mindfulness tricks really allowed me to appreciate being in the moment and having a little bit more patience, you know. And it's I understand what you're talking about it like being a vertical silo of time, that like you're just, it's always in the same spot. And, you know, I can always like look down, but it's time itself is one of those topics. Like I wish we had 3 hours for you and I to talk about time, because it's.
Have you ever done any like cathartic therapies?
I don't know what that is.
Cathartic therapy is like where you just like fucking scream and yell and smash a pillow and
not
like
from
no. Like no,
not from a doctor. I mean, they didn't have me do that. I've of course done all that, but no. You've done it?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
I found them. I really like them. I think that's how you really expend energy out, and it's such a good way to bring you into the present moment. You know what I mean? Like. Yeah, I used to do, when I was in New York, actually, where there was this guy, what was he doing? I can't remember what it was called now. John Lennon used to do it. It was this type of theater called, maybe it was called primal theater or something like that. And it had some sort of relationship to primal scream therapy. I don't know if you know primal scream therapy. That was kind of something popular in the 60s and the 70s, where you just go into a room and just start screaming and belting things.
Yeah.
And the guy who invented it claimed it could cure tennis elbow, amongst other things. And but like yeah, it's like it's very interesting. Like yeah, so we used to do these things like in this theater group where we just lie on the floor and you just start remembering someone you had resentment towards, and then you just start screaming at them and yelling at them and just like abusing them and punching them or whatever you wanted to do. And then we get up and do improvisations like straight after that.
Wow.
And they were always pretty interesting. Hey, you had this sort of freedom of this like expression kind of going on. And I think generally speaking, cathartic therapies are really worth checking out. Like it's because it's just a pure like feeling of having expended the energy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where you get to that point of you're just exhausted, and then you just get this kind of high, and then life kind of, the rest of life seems to be put into its own context. Like it's all just stuff, you know, it's all just things that are happening, and you can, you know, like deal with it. I've been getting really into Wim Hof method this year. I've been doing that.
What exactly is that? Can you breathe? You can not breathe for 3 to 4 minutes when you do that? Is that right?
I don't do that long. I just do it until it's really, really, really uncomfortable. Yeah, you basically just like take like 30 big breaths in, and then you expel your breath, and then you hold it for as long as you can, whether that's 2 minutes or whatever. And you feel the panic rise. And what it does is it releases all these stress hormones because your body is under stress. And so your body is actually releasing a whole lot of like repair chemicals. And also there's something about putting yourself, like I've also been doing the cold showers. So I do this full flush of just like cold every morning. And there's something about having a little bit of adversity every day, even if it's just really controlled adversity, and it's just controlling myself, putting my body under stress, or, you know, in the breath or with the cold showers, and also just doing it every day. There's something like you are kind of defined by adversity in a way. And I think that, yeah, I've been getting a lot out of it, but it's really hard to articulate exactly what I've gotten out of it, apart from feeling good and healthy and all that kind of stuff. Like there's something else about doing the Wim Hof method where, which has something to do with just putting myself under stress every day, just a little bit. But that repetitive thing is like, because once your body has been under stress, then afterwards you just really.
Yeah, it's like you're taking away the mental possibility of later running into something because you physically already took care of that stress, right? It's like
Maybe that's what's going on. I mean, like I think the physical and the mental are very obviously connected, if not the same thing. And so that's why doing like therapies where you are physical and you expel the energy, that has this very calming mental effect afterwards. That makes total sense, doesn't it?
Yeah, because I play hockey. It's been a while, but I play hockey, and that's how I feel after I play. Is exactly that. You get it all out, sweat and push and grind, and then afterwards everything just kind of feels a little bit slower. So I can imagine it's very similar.
Yeah.
I mean, just the feeling that you get. I mean, I hear a lot of people talking about it recently, so it's pretty cool. How exactly do you say it? How's it spelled? I've never seen it written.
WIM, Wim,
Yeah.
Hof, HOF.
Oh, Wim Hof. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
And
Cool.
yeah, it's pretty simple, like breathing exercise. We could do it now if you wanted to do it.
Cool. We got 5 minutes. Can we do it in 5 minutes?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
So I'll just take you through it. So basically, just take some really, really big breaths in. Anyone watching, you can do this as well. Just take really big breaths in, like
Can
really
be through my nose and mouth. Doesn't matter.
Mouth, whichever way you get it in more. Yeah. And I'll count it.
I feel like I'm gonna pass out.
All right, don't pass out. Just keep breathing in deep. Nice big deep breaths. And if you're about to pass out, then just stop and we can just do the timer thing. Keep breathing in. Big breath. Just 10 more.
Yeah, I feel exhausted and lightheaded. Maybe I should slow down.
Okay, that's cool. So let's do 5 more. 5, 4, 3, 2.
Just kidding.
1 more. And breathe all the way out and hold it.
I feel I feel a sense of dopamine release, serotonin. I feel very at ease.
Yep. Just notice the present moment.
We'll talk about feeling awkward. Doing this on stream, I feel a little awkward.
Just holding your breath. And if you need to breathe out or breathe in, then just do that. You're coming up to 1 minute. You might feel certain chemicals releasing. You can maybe feel a little bit of adrenaline releasing. It's 1 minute 30. And if you need to breathe in, breathe in. And take a big breath in when you need to. So big breath in and hold it. Hold that big breath in. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and release it. So yeah, how do you feel? Bit tingly or?
I feel relaxed. While I was doing it, I felt a little bit like I was gaining energy. But now that I open my eyes and breathe, I feel relaxed.
So it's pretty simple. I just do that like 3 times a day. Maybe sometimes I do 2 sessions. So 2 sessions of that a day. And
so in doing that and breathing like that, you're sort of getting this erratic thing going where like you're almost getting high and then you're holding your breath to be calm and like let it go. Is that what's happening?
You're oxygenating, and you do something to the pH level. I guess it's like if the body is an electrical.
I felt like I was about to fight, like it was a fight or flight response.
Yeah. You get this point where you feel the energy and you feel like you want to breathe, and if you can, and I just try to relax into that state until I get to the point where no, I need to breathe, and then I just take a big breath in. You hold it there for 15 seconds, and then you release.
Cool.
And it's best to go and watch Wim Hof talk about it, but they've done all sorts of like experimentation on him and stuff, and on people who've done his techniques, and it's like, I think most disease is caused by inflammation of things, and this lowers inflammation. Or maybe that's also the cold water, because the cold water really kind of like constricts all your blood vessels, so you really get the blood like flowing. Like I normally do that breathing exercises, and then I go and have lately I've been having a hot shower, and then I turn it off all cold, and I'm just do all cold for a while. And
I heard you guys talking about that on stream. That's crazy.
That you know how if you've been in a sauna and then a cold plunge, I just get that kind of beautiful.
But you don't turn it back to warm. You finish cold, right? So your last moments in the shower are brutal.
At first, I was just doing cold, straight up cold, just like turning on the cold, and then just in the last month, I've started. No, I want to have a hot shower, and so I've been having a nice hot shower, and then I've been getting it really hot towards the end of that, and then at the end I just slam on the cold, and I just kind of like cool myself all down, and then I'm just like, feels very good way to start the day. Yeah.
You guys are wild. I'll have to give it a shot.
Give it a shot, hey? Yeah. And everyone at home, like, give it a shot. Experiment. Like, it's something it doesn't take too long, and it's like, it has a pretty amazing effect, and it's so simple, you know? Yeah. And I think it improves your immune system. Like, they were doing things like injecting like bacteria into Wim Hof and a whole lot of people that he taught this thing to. And like, I think they were injecting, what's that really full-on bacteria? That salmonella or something? I don't know. That was
I heard what you're talking about.
And like
Ebola, maybe? Did they inject
Ebola?
Ebola?
They were injecting Ebola into him, and he was getting and there was no reaction from his body, because that was regulating it. Like it was like, it's like tuning all the chemicals to go, right, get ready, immune system, something's going wrong, you're under stress, get out and repair everything, and so you're getting these repair chemicals every day.
Yeah.
Something like that, I guess, you know. But like, yeah.
Well, I was laughing at the comments. Ross Tech says that was the best workout I've got since I was streaking in the Bellagio's fountain. So
you did a little streak.
No, he's just being funny. But that's why when you were in the midst of you talking, that's why I started laughing. So we gotta wrap it up, Bloobum. I gotta get off stream because we can't cross times like we used to, because we use the same platform. So we got to give a little space in between. So I just want to thank you for joining me tonight, and love to do this again sometime. Broader topics maybe, and just kind of hang out and see where it goes. Always enjoyable talking with you. So thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on, Joe. Yeah, it's been awesome. I really enjoyed it. And yeah, thanks everyone for watching.
Yeah, thank you guys, everybody watching. We'll be back on in 10 minutes with Discourse Syndicate. Bloobum is on Twitter at Jono or Jono Cats. How do you say your first?
Jono. Yeah,
Jono Cats. So it's JONNO
KATZ. Yeah.
KTZ.
And that's my website if people want to see, like johnocats.com has nothing crypto is on there, but it's all just my previous life stuff.
Yeah, it's really cool that I remember checking that out a long time ago and just seeing the getting to know you a little bit better. It's really cool that you have that up there for everybody to see, and want to check out that movie that you said is on there as well. That
Good grief.
Yeah, Good Grief. Cool. So well, thank you, everybody. We'll be back in a little bit. And Bloobum, thank you so much once again. We'll see everybody soon. Take
Thanks,
care, everybody.
Joe.